known to be related to them in power. And they achieve what they want in that way. Now, Bush's family tree can be documented as far back as the 15th century. He's connected to Edward I of Longshanks, that all the Scots know as the Hammer of the Scots, who decimated and murdered up there. It's business as usual for these people. And the Bouillons were servants, though, of Pope Gregory VII, particularly Godefroy. He didn't just dream up this idea on his own. He was sent. He was an agent, as his descendants today are agents. He was sent by the Pope Gregory VII and Urban II. And his wife, that's the senior Bush, of course, him and his wife are both related to the same British monarchs. And Clinton and Dole and Gore, the rest is the same. I go into that in my other works. We have the phenomenon of the White Pope. But the White Pope is just the head of the official organ, the official Roman Catholic religion. Behind him is the Black Pope. And behind the Black Pope, for those who are familiar specifically with my work, is the cult of Aton. And these hierarchs out of the ancient Egyptian world, the old Israelite Egyptian pharaohs of old. A whole other concept that we don't have time to elaborate on now. But those who are familiar with my work will understand that there's a worship of the dark side of the sun, which Christians call Luciferianism. And they're not far wrong, actually. They're not far wrong. But I prefer to call it Atonism, the worship of the sun church that Jordan has spent his whole life elaborating on. The solar church. What is the solar church? These people that we're talking about today are lower henchmen, servants, lieutenants of this great power. But specifically, Bush answers to the Queen and also to the Black Pope, who at this point in time is Peter Hans Kolvenbach and his coterie, Opus Dei, and many of the other orgs that they control in this country, including the media. As David Icke said, the Queen of England made Bush's military chiefs, Colin Powell and Norman Schwarzkopf, honorary knights of the British Empire. And the senior Bush is indicted for her services rendered also in the First War of Iraq. Of course. But for any American to get on his knees to those people in Buckingham Palace is an obscenity. That alone should have had them thrown into the Atlantic Ocean where they belong. Right. How dare they, that a few hundred years ago, you were fighting these people. You were all out war against these tyrants. The Tsar of Russia wasn't your enemy. The Outer Mongolians weren't. Certainly not the Afghanistans and Saddam Hussein. No. The enemy of America, as I've said many times, was Britain. So what are they doing giving the keys of the city of New York to the Queen of England just a short time after? What are these guys getting on their knees? Well, they're doing it because they have to. They're going home to say, pat me on the back, now I've done my job. America is sinking a little bit further into the grave. Where's my medal? Where's the schools that my kids are going to go to? You see, all those privileges. I don't care about the American people. I care about my life, my family. Henry Ford, who was a little bit onto some of this stuff, he was off in many areas, but the man had a sort of a glimmer, same as Howard Hughes, into what was going on. And one thing he said I agree with, he said people deserve the government they get. We're going to see in this presentation that he is exactly precisely right, probably more than he even knew. We do deserve the governments we get, and we're going to find out how we bring those governments into existence. In my work specifically, unlike a lot of other researchers in this field, I do not leave consciousness at the door. I've always stated, and will continue to state until the end, that no matter how many other permutations that this conflict takes on, like Federal Reserve, you see, or IRS, or endless vaccinations, you see, or war in the Gulf, you see, or any other kind of permutation that's out there in your face in the physical time-space continuum, any of these horrors that are taking place, illegal immigration, the list goes on. The real war is a psychic one. The real war is on consciousness. And too many people are forgetting this in this conspiratorial movement, so to speak, or in alternative history. And I will not ever make that mistake. Science has often left consciousness at the door, and look at what has happened to science. Now it has to bring it back in because the science basically run aground in the 1970s from all the time of leaving consciousness out and so-called objectivity. But we must not make the same mistake. So no matter whatever permutations of the tyranny that you see openly, as awful as that is in the 3D world, never forget first that it's all about attack here. It's they live. It's psychic dictatorship. What is government? The proof is in the words, the etymology. From the Latin gubernare, or the Greek gubernan. And those words mean to control. And then, of course, you can look it up anywhere. Mente simply means mind. So government literally means the control of the mind. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing is hidden from us. Nothing. It's right there for the person to see. But my question is then, how is this accomplished? Once we understand that it's a psychic tyranny and they're trying, to control our minds as well as our lives, we want to discover a little bit more about how that's accomplished, because we are in the age of solutions now. So I asked you a question. How many people have been to the optician recently? Right. And I think what's the price for just a normal cursory, run-of-the-mill diagnosis of even one eye? Isn't it like $300, the bill? Huh? It's about $75. And I've heard that in some places, for a little bit further diagnosis or for a real treatment, it can cost up to $300 per eye. You can be walking out with almost a $1,000 bill just for a checkup on your eyes from an optician. Well, then I ask a question. What is the price we're willing to pay for the boon of clear mental vision? What do we owe the teachers of the world who help us come to clarity when we're in a delirium? What do we owe the Jordan Maxwells of the world? The teachers who walk very close to us to say, my goodness, and what they end up doing the thinking for all of us. They first have to do the thinking for themselves, and then they find out they've got to do the thinking for their brothers and sisters who say, no, I don't want to think. Can you not do the thinking for me? That's too much trouble. And we have to understand as we become teachers ourselves that really, as I've often said, the word teacher is synonymous with the word threat. Try waking somebody up from their delirium and you will soon find that you're a threat. Try even talking about fluoride in the toothpaste. Or don't have your children vaccinated with hundreds of vaccines, and you're going to find that you're immediately a threat, even amongst the people that are closest to you. And we don't want to have that clear vision that the teacher is trying to bring us to, or the shaman is trying. No, we want to edit. So when a lot of people are saying, look, I live in a harmonious world, I don't see any of this stuff going on, I'm looking for peace, love, and harmony. What they really mean is that they are editing out the ugliness so that they can be in that one season world. But the man who's using his whole mind doesn't do that. And then say, oh, I'm living in Shangri-La, because they've beautifully, carefully, and methodically edited out the ugly side of life. They're unintegrated souls. Based on tonight's talk and a lot of my work with 2012, I've got some new ideas. They're really no ideas new. But now we are coming into another age where we can revisit some of the great gnosis of the past. I'm not going to go into rehash the same stuff I put on the 2012 DVD about the Nephilim and their particular agenda of vacating the planet. That's all been rendered already, and I'm not going to waste your time with stuff that you can visit in other areas. We've got some new information, a slightly different slant on these things. In the divination reading, and there's a very short one, there's hardly any predictions for after 2012, but the one that exists is about the sun, Ahu, the light from which we emerge, and the light to which we will return. Now, of course, all people of intense knowledge mystically, like the Maya, or like the Irish Celts, when they said even a word like the sun, they didn't just mean that ball up in the sky. They meant also the sun in here, the sun of rational intelligence, when they're talking about that day. And the little prediction goes something like, this year anchors a spiritual certainty and the understanding of the cycles of time. So they're talking about time is going to be key. Well, of course, we know that the sun is important because the sun is crossing galactic center at that particular junction. On 21st of December 2012, the sun will be, in conjunction with galactic center. So the sun is important. And cycles of time, which preoccupied the Maya, will be important. And cycles of time have always been important. We have the famous 12 signs of the zodiac. And what we need to realize, without going into all the astrological information that I deal with in other areas, in the DVDs and so on, in the great cycle of the zodiac, those 12 signs, we are here. Now the sun takes 2,160 years just to go through one sign of the zodiac. And it takes about 25,920 years to go through the whole lot, which is called the Platonic cycle. But we are now, in that time clock, very late in the sign of Pisces, almost approaching the age of Aquarius. And people have different dates for that. Some people say it's only 150 years off. Others say, no, it's more like 700. When you're talking about thousands and thousands of years, that's a minute. That's a very, very, very small amount of time. So it really doesn't matter. Ultimately, we are on the cusp of a change and the move into what they call the New Age. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And again, we have from the older civilizations like the Brahmins, again, a fixation on the cycles of time. And I'm a bit dubious about the endless expanse of time that they associate in their calendar. I think it's not wholly accurate. But the idea, again, just briefly, is that they also believe in great cycles. They understood that civilization are born, they come to their peak, and then they collapse, they dissolve.